Hello guys, welcome. This is Abdulkarim from CodesideAcademy.com. Today we'll continue where we stopped in our last class, our Flask web development course. So we stop at Flask templating, rendering HTML templates in your design, your Flask app. So today we'll talk about how to serve static files. What are static files? Static files are images, sound, JavaScript files, your CSS files, and so on. So your TXT files, different external files, heavy files that you think that makes up the components of your website or your web app. These things are all called static files or in Flask. So Flask has something called static folder and a static URL. A static URL in Flask is a kind of a static URL by its name. It's permanent there. You can't change it except you just want to change the dynamic ways of the way Flask works. Since it's open source and it's based on Jinja 2 template engine, you can just break the rules and manipulate it. But if you are still following the standard of Flask, you have to create a folder called static in your project. So to be able to start to serve images, pictures, sound in your Flask app, you need a static directory. So I will run our project once again. Okay, now we are running the project. If we check our last class, what we had, our localhost port 8000. This is the home page. Visit /home. Now this is where we stop on our last class. Now we want to add some images, some CSS, and some other good stuff to this web app, to this website now. So I'll come to my folder directory, my project directory here. I'll create a folder called static. Okay, now once I have this folder, this is the basic file, this is the file structure Flask followed. This is the pattern, a template that Flask followed to handle project. So now what's next for me to do now is to create a style sheet, a CSS style sheet. So I'll create a CSS file. I'll call it style.css. Okay. So I have to create property for body, also background color. I'll make it blue, and I'll create for H1 color will be white. Okay, now we have this. So once we are done with this, if we reload the page, we can see there's no changes yet. So we need to link these two things together. So in HTML, traditionally we just have to say static, but it will still work. Style.css, and if we reload the page, we have this. But wait, this is not the right approach when you are developing a Flask project. It's a totally wrong approach. So this is the right approach when you want to deal with Flask and follow the normal standard. You call your Jinja 2 language in your template. You type in URL for, remember in our last class that we called URL building, how to build a URL in Flask. Remember we make use of URL for. So now Static is a URL that has a folder. So now you're starting static is a URL. You can also create your own URL that behaves like this, but this is the standard ways that Flask uses. So I will just say static folder. Now this name I pass here is the name of a URL which is matching a folder here, this folder that we create, and then inside this folder we have a file name style.css. Now we have to point to that style. We'll call file name equals to style.css. So I will just reload this. We still have the same thing. Yeah, nothing's gonna change. You can see the log, we still point to the same file. Alright. So now let's have images. Let's add some images to our website. So I have already get some image from here. I hate Windows. Oh, this is one of the reasons I hate Windows. Okay, now we have this. We'll put this image on our web app now. So I'll cut this. I'll take it to my static directory. I'll create a folder called images. I'll paste this. Let me just, for simplicity, I will rename it to 1.jpg. Alright. Okay, we have done this now. So let's include image in our design. So I will just call img. Then inside the source, I'll pass a URL for static file name equals to the name of the folder that the image is in. So the image is inside static, inside image. Which image? I mean, an image is inside static, and images contain 1.jpg, which is the image that we need. So I'll say file name equals to images slash 1.jpg. Okay, now I have this guy. I can now reload. Voila. Now this is our web app. Now we are now able to serve a static file in our web app. So this is how to serve static file in our web app. So stay tuned for the next class. We have complete. Now we are done with static. So in the next class we'll be talking about Flask request object, how we can talk about Flask request object, then we'll talk about Flask HTTP method and so on and so forth. So, and this class contains 34 classes. This course contains 34 classes, and at the end of this course we'll be able to get we'll be able to get the entire source code to this project on our GitHub. So thank you very much. See you in the next class. Alright guys, bye.